Yeah, that was my last mission. one out of three. The first one was a Lulu.
Tell me about your first mission.
It was what they would call, I guess, a milk run. We went over France and bombed some airfield or whatever. I don't even know what we were bombing, but we were tail end Charlie. I guess because you knew the planes are stacked up this way. From the ground, they look like you're all at the same level, but we're all maybe 1,000 feet different, backed up. And taking off in the morning, you go through the fog with your full load of bombs and gasoline until you get above the clouds. And then you, in order to meet your group, you shoot a flare. Now there's a green, a red, green, blue, different color flares. And where you see the flares, that's where your group is, and you head for them. And when you get all lined up, then you head out over the channel. And you get up around 10,000 feet, you warm your guns up, you burst it. And you don't touch them because they're frozen. You take the skin off your hand. And brings back a lot of memory. We went in over the channel, over the French coast, and before you know it, the flak starts coming up. No fighters, just flak. And I'd never seen it before. And I'm sitting in my turret, and these orange things are popping, black smoke all around, and one of them completely near us, boom, you know. And you know what happened? I said, "Ma!" It burst out of my mouth. Ma. Why? I don't know. Something primal. And we came back. We landed. It was fine. There were a couple of planes went down behind us when they found our altitude. And there were little pieces of aluminum rolled up on the wings where the flak had chipped away at the plane, but nobody was hurt. So that wasn't too bad. But that flak is really something. It's really scary because, you know, it's mindless. It doesn't care who it kills.
Right, especially from your position.
Yeah, I'm looking at all of this, and that one that was so close, it just blurted out of me, "Ma."
I think that's pretty common too. That is something really primal because a lot of that seems to be the.
That's right. That's right.
Moment.
Yeah.
I guess getting to some of the earlier stuff. Well, when did you have? I guess when did you first get an interest in aviation? Was it at the school you were?
No. Before that, I used to go down to Mitchell Field and watch the different planes. Different things were always happening out of Floyd Bennett, and the original Grummins and everything else used to come out of there. I was always interested in it, and naturally, this teacher from the school got me a little more interested in it, and that's the way I wanted to go. There was an aviation school too, but he taught me into going to his school. I was a pretty good mechanic. You know, somebody had told somebody that I had gone to the school. They asked me to do a ring job on their car, right in the street in front of his house. I took the engine apart, put new rings in, ground down his valves and everything. Perfect. So, yeah.
How old were you then? I guess when you were doing that, when you were going out to the Mitchell Field.
Oh, not Floyd Bennett.
Or Floyd Bennett.
Oh, 16, 17. And there was no way that I had to walk. There didn't have any cars or anything.
You didn't fly in one of the planes at any point, or were you able to get a ride?
Yeah, he took me up.
What was that like the first time you went up?
Noisy, smelly, a lot of noise. You know, it was a canvas plane. Yeah. He charged $5 to take people up.
Did you have a good time though, or?
Yeah, it was interesting, but it wasn't. It was just noisy and smelly.
I guess especially, I guess growing up in the New York area, and at that time, Hitler came to power in '33, and all of that was already going on. How much did you know about what was going on in
Pretty much, because I followed it pretty closely. Used to ride around the street on the bicycles yelling, "We want Hitler," with a rope around his neck. I didn't realize I was politically active.
How did you get interested in it? Describe a little bit of how you were aware of it.
Well, you saw it in the papers, the Bund was here, the Bund was there, and then they were into the last stone was the being in Madison Square Garden. That show that they put on there, that was the thing that broke the camel's back, so to speak. I was aware of it.
What year was that they did that show?
I don't remember. I was young too.
That was the German American boom, I guess.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that, because I don't think that's something that most people are aware of, how active that kind of thing.
Well, they were active in New Jersey mostly. And there's a huge German population in the United States. I think there are more Germans in the United States than there are in Germany. And they're all farmers and, and decent people. But I don't know where this, probably through the propaganda and Goebbels and everything, the fifth column. That's what it was. The original fifth column.
And not subject, I guess, to some of the treatment that, for instance, like the Japanese got treated, because they
No.
They more active in
Oh God, yes. The Japanese were all honest Americans. It's just the way they look.
Yeah.
We're terrible, but we have some pretty terrible times in this country too. And they turned out the fiercest fighters for us in Italy. They were so brave in everything they did. So go figure. They were over there getting killed and everything else, and their parents were locked up in behind barbed wire.
Also, the fact that you were living in the city and aware of what was going on and kept yourself informed on the current events in Europe. How much did you know about the persecution of Jews?
Not too much. Didn't realize what was going on in Germany.
Did you ever met anyone who had been, like, for instance, a refugee who had come to the U.S. from Germany, escaping it, or anything like that?
Just Einstein.
He's the only one you heard of.
Yeah, well, we realized that the ship came to the United States trying to bring them here, and Roosevelt turned them away. Cuba turned them away, sent them back to Germany, and were slaughtered.
What was your reaction when you heard about that particular story?
Disgust. I used to like Roosevelt. I learned to hate him in later years. But I actually think, well, he was right in getting us into the war. He certainly tried. Because when I was stationed in, even at the time I was stationed in Mitchell Field, I showed you pictures of those airplanes that were there. We were fixing them up. They were coming through, and we were sending them to Canada. And when I was stationed in Trinidad, we had exchanged the lease for destroyers that we had given to England. So that was always going on. He was always, on the side of England and so on, and trying to edge us into the war. Whether he knew about Pearl Harbor is always under discussion now. But I think we could have gone in with a little. This is the only thing that could have gotten us mad enough to really go in and declare war on all. Actually, they declared war on us, but they knew that what was coming by then. We had been supplying Lend-Lease and everything else. We were helping Russia with the Air Cobras, all the planes we didn't want.
buffaloes, I guess, to Australia and New Zealand, and
Oh well.
I guess, and at that time they were already sinking Liberty ships
Oh sure.
off the coast and stuff.
That's right. That's right. Right here in the Gulf. They used to wait for them to come out and knock them off one by one.
Which that's an incredible thing to think about. The idea, especially anybody now, people who were not there at the time, to imagine, sitting on the beach one day and you see, a freighter sinking off the coast on fire.
That's right.
You know.
We were with our B-18s were flying escort where the ships were going through the southern route to Africa. We'd fly out as far as we could, and we carried depth charges that break open. So we started to carry 500-pound bombs with a tenth of a second fuse, so that it went under and exploded. And my squadron got one sub. They dropped 3 of them across it, and there was one guy outside the sub, and he ran to the end and jumped off the sub. I don't know what he was going to do out in the ocean. But we used to fly out there, and like you have in Florida, a rain squall here, and we'd fly low, and the squall would deaden our engines more or less, and you'd come around there, and they'd be with their clothes drying up. Well, so they said they tried to machine gun the guy, and they said, well, what should we do? So they said, we're sending a tug out, throw him a life raft. Because they wanted to question him or something. So instead of killing him, they threw him a life raft. But what the bomb sight that he used was 2 rubber bands strung across the front of the plane. And I remember he got a medal for it too.
2 rubber bands, that was the bomb.
Yeah.
Not the Norden, huh?
No. We were flying low.
Low altitude.
But every time they dropped a depth charge and hit it, the thing would break apart rather than blow up. So we started with 500-pounders. Another strange thing you probably never heard of. When I was in Trinidad, that was maybe 6 months or so before war was declared, when we went to Guyana. We were standing on the runway with our engines running, also with 500-pound bombs in the B-18s. And we were waiting from a direct order from the President of the United States to take off and bomb the French Vichy fleet in Martinique. If they were going to turn over the fleet to the Germans, we were to bomb the fleet. And we stood there with the engines running, ready to go. We weren't at war, but that was the order given. We would have killed a lot of Frenchmen.
But to prevent it from falling into the enemy hands.
Yeah. They didn't want the French fleet to fall into the German hands. And they were in Martinique.
It never came to that point.
No, they canceled. Everything was canceled. Took the bombs out.
And that was when you had these B-18s.
Yeah, that's all we had. Even in Guyana, we had B-18s. They used to call me Eagle Eye, my pilot. Yeah, because for some reason I could see better distances than they could. And the funny thing, the Germans were going after tankers all the time. And you know how a tanker is when he's full of oil, just the superstructure and the smokestack is sticking out. And I didn't realize that, I'd see one off in the distance and the pilot said, where? I said, straight ahead. And they'd fly and fly. And they finally come up on it. And it's too late, It's under the water. And sure enough, we'd fly by and he was just loaded with oil. He wasn't sinking or anything. But we did a lot of patrolling. And when you realize now, looking back at the time, we weren't at war, but we went to Panama, then we went to Trinidad, and we went to Guyana. So we were making a section there that we could work out of. I don't know what we'd have done if anybody attacked us, because we were not really ready for anything. Not really ready. The day that war broke out, they first put guards out there, and the Dutch in Suriname came over and borrowed ammunition from us. In Trinidad, the airport was called Piarco, and in Suriname it was I forget already. But it was everything in Suriname was made out of aluminum ore, the runways, and oak or some hard wood because it was all sand, and you'd get these little tigers in your skin. You had to pull them out. So we all wore boots. But it was a strange place, that bush Negro. The Dutch had imported them because actually the history of Suriname is tied in very, very closely to New York, because it was exchanged between the Dutch and the English. Because they figured that Suriname was having 3 or 4 crops a year and they brought the slaves over who got smart and started to slaughter the ranches there and drift into the jungle and became these bush people who traveled. There are no legs practically, but all body, because they traveled by canoe. There's all waterways throughout there.
All that upper body strength.
Yeah, they drifted into the jungle and finally attacked the Dutch. The Dutch had Marines in there, but they defeated the Marines, blowguns and all of that sort of stuff. And finally, the Dutch started to pay them tribute in top hats, jewelry, trinkets, like the Indians.
Mm-hmm.
And so that sort of the history. I wrote a history for the squadron. I went into town and I found these old books that were from year 1, and it was quite an interesting history. The one bush Negro that worked for this family was very intelligent, and they sent him to school in England. Came back and he started the whole revolution there. To this day, they still pay them tribute, but it's nothing.
Yeah. The one guy that got smart, though, got an education and started the revolution.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
What was it? Tell me about Panama. What was it like? Panama.
Very steamy and hot. And when we left for Panama on the American troop ship, the American Legion, and we left New York, and it broke my heart when I saw the lights of the Belt Parkway fading in the distance. I just started to get lonesome right off the bat. We pulled into Charleston under the bridge, and we picked up Southern soldiers for artillery outfit that was coming with us to Panama. They were still wearing World War I uniforms with tight collars and everything else. And we were throwing baskets over the side, and they were sending up peanuts, and we were playing. And then we went on south. As we passed Florida, the flying fish started to appear. And we got to Panama, and it was evening, and they decided to give us a pass off the ship. And previous to this, we had never seen a MP like the ones that they had in Panama. They were Mr. Moore, God. And they were wearing shorts and the hats and everything. So we pulled into the locks there, and they're standing there like ramrods, The guys blowing the whistle. These guys are wearing shorts, they're women. And we start whistling at them, and then the squadron commander says he can have a pass for this evening, but they'll get back late. So we start walking down the gangplank, and there's the MP. Oh, we show him a pass. He says, "Doesn't need a goddamn thing. Get back on that boat." Countermanded the colonel's orders. Got back on that boat, and through the year that I was in Panama, at one time I was a sergeant of the guard in charge of the prison, and they brought a prisoner into me that they beat up pretty good, and they threw him in a cell. So I was glad to take him away from me, and I locked him up. They came back about an hour later, they wanted him again. I said, I can't release him till my officer signs off. And well, don't give us that, give us the prisoner. I said, you can't have it. He said, well, we're going to have a gun deal. I said, I'm Sergeant of the Guard. I'm in charge of this prison. I can't release anybody until I'm told by a superior officer. So this went on and on and on, and they went away. But I thought I was going to really get killed there because these guys are murderers. I've had heard of a case where the whole squadron came out and really mopped them up one time. But they were the law. They were the law.
Getting back to, I guess, before the war actually began. Well, tell me about how you decided to get into the military in the first place. Talk to me about that whole.
Well, I had a premonition a little that this was going to happen, and I thought, let me get in and learn what it's all about, and if I go in now, I could determine where I want to go, and so I decided I wanted to go into the Army Air Force, as it was at that time. So I went down to 39 Whitehall Street, and they gave me a physical, and they said, you have flat feet. And I said, oh, no, it can't be. I'm a high jumper in high school. I said, I can jump 5 foot something. And I started to walk around on my toes to convince them. They said, okay. And so I passed the physical, and they gave me a chit for car fare to go to Mitchell Field. And from there, I went to Mitchell Field and saw the commander-in-chief there, whoever he was. I don't remember much. I just went in and spoke to this officer, and he said, well, it's Sunday, go in and have lunch with the men, and I did. And from there on, it was $21 a month, which is good for your haircuts, your laundry, and and your free time. And I received my basic training there with a basic training man that was a basic training man, if I must say so. Made everybody else look like sissies. His name was Medveshek. He was a Czech, Medveshek. And he had that, carried that stick, and a Boy Scout hat of his, he could knock a fly out of this. And he took a dislike to me right away. I was allergic to wool, and it was winter, September, and they were wearing woolen uniforms by then, woolen shirts, and I blistered up from the wool. So the doctor said, well, put on a summer shirt, use a summer shirt. So I stood out like a sore thumb. I'm wearing, they were all wool and I'm in cotton. But we finally leveled off to where I became a corporal, and I got up in a little non-com business. Medveshek came to Panama with us, went up on a hill, got in his car, took the hose from the exhaust, and put it into the car and committed suicide.
No. Did anybody know why?
No, never knew why. They hushed it up, you didn't hear too much about it.
How did you feel about that when you heard about it?
Sort of happy. Oh, he was a mean SOB. He was mean. He really tried to be mean too. But I guess it was good for us. We learned how to obey orders.
So, but it wasn't personal. It was just.
No, it wasn't personal. He was mean to everybody. Just a nasty individual. They trained him that way. Most of the guys in my outfit, all the sergeants and all that, were from the Coast Artillery. And not the Coast, they rode horses, the cavalry. The Air Force is made up of old cavalry people. They had been to the Philippines and been through those campaigns and everything. And apparently, when I was working in a hangar, when I washed the floors and fixed the hose neatly and everything, and these are the things we did, all the dirty work is a recruit. And Sergeant Rollick is the guy that used to have his drink with a cigar. dunk the cigar in the whiskey and chew it. And he used to have us walk around with a 45 pistol and a brick hanging from our hand. This guy could hit a fly from a running horse with a pistol, you know. So he thought that was the most important thing for the Air Force, to have a guy walking around with a pistol like that. But yeah, I mean, the training was so ridiculous at the time. Luckily, there were some sergeants there that took us under their wing, and we just watched everything they did. And that's the way we learned. We didn't learn in the school. We learned right there on the how to give pre-flights and everything else, and they had this book. Every plane had this history in this book, and you looked and you saw all the inspections that were done and whatever had to be done. And we took very good care of those planes. We never had a problem. And we changed engines on ourselves. So